Welcome to the Kissing Spine Podcast. How nice of you to join. In this podcast, I discuss several topics around kissing spine, like what kissing spine is, the different medical treatments, the function of different body parts, functional and dysfunctional training techniques, saddle fit, and a whole lot more. All put together to help you support your horse with the kissing spine. I wish you a lot of fun listening, and if you like this podcast, make sure to become a subscriber so you won't miss any of my episodes. Hi all, welcome in Villa Kula, and welcome back to the Kissing Spine Podcast. It's early mornings and the cats and dog are very much awake and they might be running around a little bit, but this is my only time today that I can record the podcast. And of course, I don't want to skip a week, so here we are. In this episode, I would like to talk a little bit more about, are we asking too much of our young horses? If you've listened to previous podcasts, especially the one that is about what causes kissing spines, then you know that I talk about the natural development of kissing spine by birth and conformation, but that training is very much, and also saddle fit is a big component whether your horse can develop a kissing spine or not. So in today's episode, I would like to talk a little bit more about training young horses. And this is a little bit because in my Facebook group, Kissing Spine Rehab Training with STJ Horse Training, it's an open group. Just get in if you want to know more about kissing spine as well. There I got the question about how you know with young thoroughbreds whether, like if for example you want to breed with a thoroughbred mare that has kissing spine, how to find out whether the kissing spine has been something more genetical or whether it's more trained because they're started at a very young age. Now, first of all, I would like you to know that I am not against starting a horse young. I'm not a believer that 6 is the best age to start a horse. And the reason why I feel this way about it is because the periosteum, which I discussed in previous episodes as well, what the function of the periosteum is. The periosteum brings blood and tissue to the bones to help them grow and heal and develop. So if you have a horse in a younger age that is still growing and developing, and you put a little bit of pressure on those horses, these bones and tendons and stuff will all be developed to grow stronger, because the body, the periosteum, is going to say like, hey, this is a lot of pressure on that bone. We need to make it stronger. So we don't want to break it, but we do want to make it stronger. And the only way to do that is to apply a little bit of pressure on it. But there's a big difference between applying a little bit of pressure on the bone and asking way more that the horse can handle. And the biggest difference in this is that people don't tend to have a very clear idea when the horse is ready to move on to something more complicated, how to recognize whether a horse is strong enough to do something. They are just having a training regime that is just like, okay, at that age it needs to do A, at that age it needs to do B, and then at that age it needs to do C, and if not, then the horse is worthless. We're going to get rid of it. We're going to move on with the next 10 horses that are waiting in line. Obviously, this puts a lot of pressure on young horses, and this is a saying that, well, goes around in the horse world more on the amateur side when it comes to professional trainers that are working at higher levels in whatever discipline they're in, that we only see the horses that they're competing with, but we're not really seeing all the horses that went in and turned out not to be able to handle the pressure mentally, or turn out not to be good enough to be quick enough at a certain level to really make money, because this is often what the horse world is about. Now, what I don't want to be doing is down talking professional trainers, because that is not the point, because they are doing what they're paid to do, and that is make money out of horses. And the horse world has become a commercial world, one where a horse needs to perform and people invest money into a horse in order for that horse to make the money as well. And as we all know, people are not really good at taking a loss. So, as soon as it turns out that a certain horse is not going to be good enough to make money, they're either going to get rid of it, try to if something physically is wrong with them, they try to get rid of it as quickly as they can. So, that is what a commercial world looks like. And that's also what happened into the breeding. Like, all these horses have been bred, well, not all the horses, but a lot of horses have been bred with a shorter back to increase their athleticism. And that is good for sports, but breeding a shorter back also comes with problems, like kissing spine, because there's a shorter place where the weight of the rider is pressing down, because you cannot make a saddle longer than where the last rib is at. So if you're having a horse that it has a short back, then you need to put pressure off the weight of the rider in a very short saddle area. So that obviously comes with more pressure in a peak point, which comes with dilemma. If then the horse is not being trained with the back up because that is taking too long, listen to it, it's taking too long, then you're going to get into trouble. And then horses can develop kissing spine out of bad training. So when it comes to young horses, again, I'm not against starting them up fairly young, like 2.5-ish, 3-ish is a good moment to start. But what do I mean with starting? With starting, I don't mean, okay, let's get on and ride them for 4 or 5 times a week for 40 minutes. No, with starting them up, I mean, okay, let's start introducing the teaching of the right movement, like the muscle development and the bone development that they need in order to carry a rider later in life. And whether you get on that particular horse at 3, 4, or 5 or 6, that's in the journey of that particular horse. In the end, you don't want to get on a horse that is not able to keep its back up with the weight of the rider going on their backs. All right. So the bigger and the better and the more secure you do the groundwork in prepping them for carrying a rider, the less likely you're going to run into trouble later. But this is a process. With a racing horse, they're not going to wait until 6 before they get on. With a dressage horse, they're not going to wait until 6 before they get on. With a show jumping horse, they're not going to wait until 6 before they get on. With a reiner, they're not going to wait until 6 before they get on. You see where I'm going? Because like when they start them up at 2.5, sometimes they just break them at 2.5 and they throw them back into the field in order to grow out. But they just want to do the breaking process when they're a little bit more wobbly and they're just a little bit more easier to control, some believe. I'm not a professional in just getting horses started on their saddle. This is what some believe. So that's why people get on at 2.5. And, if that's how they work and they just get on like for 5 times and throw them out in the field again for 6 months before they're going to do a little bit more, then, there's something to say for that. It wouldn't be my approach, but there's something to say for that. Just to get them familiar with having a person on their backs. Okay, that's a approach. You can choose to do that. Not having a real opinion about it. Except that I wouldn't do it that way because I don't feel comfortable with it, but that doesn't classify something else being bad or good. Just let me point that out very clearly. So what I would choose to do with 2.5 is just work them in hand and get them to work into the contact, like get them familiar with contact, get them familiar with the whip, get them desensitized. That's that sort of stuff. And that could be 5 minutes a day. It doesn't have to be a 30-minute session, especially with a youngster. I wouldn't choose to do that because then, their mental state, their concentration is really not that good yet. And they're very weak in their bodies. So if you would ask too much, they would get sore. The fun out of the work is all gone. You don't really want that. You want to develop a horse that's willing to work with you and wants to give it its all. Like, oh, hey, I know how to do that. Let me give you some more. Because that is in general what horses do if you give them the time to like develop and, and get them along in the play game, to give it a name. So what I would do is with 2.5, 3-ish, I would start introducing work in hand. I would do a little bit of lunching. With my Frisian, for example, I got on when she was just about 4. And when I get on, what I would do is just ride them 3 times a week for about 15-20 minutes. In the beginning, even shorter. Like I would lunge them a little bit, get them through the body. So then I would just walk them on their backs for like 5 minutes just to get them familiar and to get them through their bodies and to get them to become stronger. And then 5 minutes is enough. And then you can expand that to 10 minutes. Well, you can see how this process is fairly slow. And now I'm going back to the commercial world, because I don't break in horses for commercial reasons. Like, I like to make money. I don't do that. Because I want to take my time. And the problem is, because I want to take my time and do it well, not that others are not doing it well, but I want to keep the horse in one part. Other trainers who do this for a living need to compromise at a certain point. They need to compromise at something. So if you bring your horse away for a month to get them broken on their saddle, that's all good. But what you decide to do with that horse after that, that is a choice you need to make. That is a choice you need to be aware of. If you're going to ride that horse, that 3-year-old, 4-year-old, for 45 minutes every day, walk, trot, canter, and the horse is not strong enough to really move through the body, that's where you're going to get back issues. And a lot of other issues, but back issues. Like, let me stay to the kissing spine topic. If the horse is not able to bring that back up yet, and you're going to like, hey, my horse is broke on her saddle, let's do walk, trot, and canter, while that horse has no idea how to move through the body while doing walk, trot, and canter, then that is just setting yourself up for kissing spine disaster. All right. So this is something that I would like you to think about. Nowadays, we are very much looking up to people who are successful riders, competing, cross country, dressage, western, show jumping, doesn't matter. But there are a few riders out there who are doing an incredible job, but there are a lot of riders out there, if you look at how their horses are moving, there's nothing correct, and these horses are not moving through the bodies. Like, you can have whatever discussion you want. They're looking very spectacular, but spectacular is not through the body. All right. And so there's a ton of information out there you can find about biomechanics and how the body works, and, you know, how these horses are compensating. So I'm not going to tire you with that right now. But if this is what you're looking up to, and you don't have the same resources as they are having to keep these horses up and healthy and running, like, that's where you're setting yourself up for problems. So take a deep breath. If you feel a little bit insulted right now, take a deep breath and think for yourself, okay, what is it that I want with my horse? All right. Do I want to keep my horse happy and healthy for the next 20 years? Then you might want to reconsider who you're looking up to. And I'm not saying like, hey, I'm the person. No, I'm saying be critical at what you're seeing and how these horses are moving, and check who you would want to learn from and who not. If your goal is to eventually become an Olympic rider, these people are the way to look up to. These are the people that will tell you how to do it, because they've done it. And they're doing a great job at it. Riding to compete, riding to win is a very different way of training horses than riding to keep your horses happy, healthy, and sound for 20 plus years. All right. So there's a very big difference between the one and the other. And I don't want to discuss whether they are bad trainers or unethical, or, because that is a discussion that's above my pay grade. I don't want to bash these people personally, because it's not going to gain me anything. It's not going to gain them anything. They are very skilled riders that are very good at what they are doing. But it's not my world. I love competing, but if that's what I have to do to compete my horses and to win, I'm out. So I'm not going to do that. It's not worth it for me. So, because I know that I would be compromising a part of my horse, and I don't have their medical team to treat my horses. Make sense? So this is something to think about. So when it comes to young horses that are being prepped to futurities, that are prepped for young stallion competitions, for horse races, these horses are in general overworked. They just need to go down that training regime of at 2 they need to be doing that, at 3 they need to be doing that, at 4 that, at 5 that, at 6 that, and at 7 they need to be Grand Prix. Like, that is sort of the scale that has taken over the world a little bit, that at a certain age, a horse needs to be able to do A, B, and C. And the thing is that if you think that way, the particular horse can be as talented as possible, but maybe develop a little bit slower at a certain point, that either they're being kicked out or they're being overasked and they're going to get some damage, either physically or mentally, because of it. So are we asking too much of our young horses in that world, in that commercial world? Definitely. Are you trying to follow that world? Then very likely you are over asking your horse, which means that you are possibly setting yourself up for troubles later down the road, because simply you're stressing the body of your horse too much and you're stressing the mind of your horse too much. So what kind of horse owner are you? This is something to think about. Are you willing to compromise that because you want to win? That is a choice, all right? And I'm not saying that you can win, that you can't win, or you can only win while breaking your horse. No, but you are asking your horse to compensate in certain ways. So, is that worth it to you? And for some, it's yes. And if that is so, then, you will not hear me. If the answer is no, I would like to show you a different path. All right. So what I would do with a young horse, I would systematically and strategically build them up, and keep in mind and keep looking for, okay, can my horse handle this? Can my horse stay through the body with this? Can my horse move supple through this? If my horse is getting stressed or tense or stiff somehow, I want to solve that issue and then move on. All right. And I want to build my horse up in such a way that I know that he is able or she is able to carry me when I get on. And from there on, I will start expanding the training. I hope this made a little sense with my perception whether young horses are being overasked or not. I think overall, yes, a lot of young horses are being overasked in their early years of training, which in the future shows issues, whether it's kissing spine, tendon issues, tendon injuries, or mental issues. So if you have a young horse, this means that if you're listening to this now, you can decide to make a different choice. You can decide to go down a different route. If that's what you want, I have the rehab strategy course. But this rehab strategy course is also perfectly fit for young horses, because honestly, the way I train kissing spine horses is 99% the same as what I do with my youngsters. The only difference is that my youngsters will develop quicker because they don't have a whole process that needs to be turned around. They're just young and fit, and I can keep on going with them. All right. So if you want to know more about this, go to my website, www.stjhorsetraining.nl, and you can find the rehab strategy course there. Thank you so much for listening, and until the next podcast. I would like to thank you again for listening to this podcast. If you think that this podcast is interesting to someone else, please share it on social media so others can find it too. This way we can create more awareness about what the options are with a kissing spine horse.